I'm here in Dawson City, Yukon, Canada, with two very important people from a company called Klondike Gold. Number one is Loki, the CEO Doc. Number two is the CEO himself, Peter Tallman. Welcome, Peter.
Welcome to Dawson.
Thank you. It's my third time here, but please explain for those who have never heard about Dawson and Klondike Gold, what happened here 125 years ago and why you are still here.
125 years ago, gold was discovered in the creeks. And for the last 125 years, people have been mining creek gravels, and they've recovered somewhere over 20 million ounces of gold from surface in the 18 placer creeks within the Klondike district. I arrived 10 years ago, relative newcomer, and basically began looking for the source of the gold that was in the creek gravels. The previous theory was that it had all been eroded away from the hills. There was nothing in the bedrock at all, really no reason to go look. And I thought differently. And so I thought that there was a great investment opportunity here to go find the source of 20 million ounces of gold.
Okay, give us an idea how big that could be. I mean, 20 million ounces is a lot, but they found everywhere and they still find it. There's a lot of operations still here, but if you think about the source, what size could it be?
Well, the 20 million ounces of placer compared to other districts around the world, for instance, in the California Mother Lode, California has the same geology as here, there's been 50 million ounces of placer gold recovered from the California Mother Lode, and somewhere around 250 million ounces have been discovered beneath the placer in hard rock mines in the last 150 years. So comparing that to the Klondike, basically what we think, the 20 million ounces of placer, what we're missing is 50 million ounces of gold in bedrock mines. So far, until I got here, there have been 0 ounces found in bedrock. To begin with, the Klondike, discovered in 1896, 20 million ounces of gold have been already recovered from this. The Klondike built Canada in many different ways. In 1896, it financed Canada. At the time, 1867, Canada became Canada. And in 1896, it was broke, effectively. And so the Canadian government granted, once everything was staked, they granted leases to dredging companies, and they charged for that and then took royalties from the dredging companies. And that really capitalized Canada by 1900. And it's exactly the same thing that happened with the California discovery. The California Mother Lode was discovered in 1848, and the U.S. at the time was broke, and the same process happened where they let dredging companies and granted large land leases to bigger companies, which paid the government, and that capitalized the U.S. in 1848. So basically, the Klondike financed Canada in that way. And then once the discovery started, 150 to 200,000 people estimated tried to come here in 1898 to find their own fortune. And many of those peeled off. Well, so by 1900 in Dawson, there's 40 to 50,000 people here. And at the same time, there's a small community just outside of Dawson where there's nothing there now, but then there was 10,000 people.
Oh, it's 2,000 here, by the way.
Yes, or less, actually.
Or less, yeah.
But in 1900, there was 50 to 60,000 people here. At the same time, in Vancouver, there's 9,000 people. So Dawson, 125 years ago, had Parisian couture as an example, and it was the largest city west of Winnipeg. It had electricity. It was one of the first electric cities in Canada. Anyway, so there were all these things that happened in Dawson 125 years ago. What didn't happen was the Dominion of Canada never mapped it. They sent mappers to come here, and those mappers, the geologists, but they ended up having to map the placer claims and establish who owned what where. So they never really got around to looking at the rocks.
Yeah.
Fast forward to 1978, the government of Canada devolves to the new Yukon territory and said, hey, it's your responsibility now. And the Yukon territorial government has never mapped this area, ever. So from a governmental point of view, despite the fact that it built Canada, there's never been an official geology map. The last person that came here in the 80s did a thesis, PhD thesis on it, and his conclusion was that all the gold was eroded away from the hills and there was none left in the bedrock. And that, the 20 million ounces, that's it, that's all there is. And, that when that's done, there's no more.
It's easy, then you don't have to find something. If you say there is nothing.
Well, and that was one aspect of it, because he was involved with the exploration. And that was what got my attention 10 years ago, because I was asked by Frank Justra to look at the Klondike. So he had already had an interest in it. And basically, I was asked by him, what do you think? And that was, so, looking at the data that was available from the Government of Canada, the Government of Canada has flown magnetic surveys over the entirety of the country, and you could see in that data the suggestions of major faults in it. And for orogenic gold deposits, you need a fault somewhere.
Yeah.
There is no map that has a fault on it until we did it. I went, well, but if there's a fault there, that begins to explain 20 million ounces, and that means there's a whole lot more still left in the ground to find. So now fast forward to today, and we've mapped, this is over 10 years, we've mapped major crustal structures, which is exactly what you need for district scale gold deposits. And we've been able to, from a scientific point of view, suggest all the features that I thought, are needed for an orogenic gold district comprised of many mines and many deposits were here. And I've been saying that to people over the last 10 years, and with growing confidence, to be honest. It's like, this evidence is accumulating. So just recently, we invited the 2 world expert orogenic gold deposit people. And one of the fellows, he's the guy who actually characterized it, invented it for the U.S. Geological Survey, and said, here's the features that orogenic gold deposits need, and he based it on the California mother lode, and then went around the world and said, yep, this all works. So he came here out of his own curiosity, because, and I was ribbing him about it in a way, it's like, you wrote this paper, it's only 4 or 5 years ago, and in it you describe all the origin, like the really significant, globally important gold deposits in these orogenic districts around the world. And then the Klondike doesn't have faults. I'm going, but they are here. Like, there are lots of them here. They cut everywhere. They're major crustal structures. And so when he got here, so here they are. And we went out and looked at them, and then looked at the gold deposits that we have found on surface, or the gold showings, and toured them around for 5 days. And they did a bit of mapping as well, and went, absolutely, it has all the hallmarks now, like the characteristics. It fits exactly as an important orogenic gold district. And his prediction to us as explorationists, because it's like, all right, where's the gold? Can you help us find it? Basically, he's drawing on the comparison with the California mother lode, but he said, what you're going to do is find many small deposits, and within your property, because we own the entirety of the district, and then there'll be some number of medium-sized deposits, and then there'll be one globally important or supergiant deposit. And from an exploration point of view, you want to put your money towards finding the biggest one first. And what you have to do is try to begin to characterize what differentiates the small stuff from that big one. Models help, and he supplied us with a whole pile of literature of here's what individual deposits look like and their descriptions. Here's, you know, where some of them, the small ones, lack some things, and this big one will look like that. And that it was a really funny interaction for 5 days. So, and picture this, it'd been 4 days of touring around and looking at drill core and out in the field, and the 5th day, we're just sitting in the office waiting for his plane that was coming in the afternoon. And I was watching him because he's sitting there and kind of, I thought, in point of fact, he was dozing. And then he started looking to his right. We have the map of the district, our geology map. And it just, over a course of about an hour, he just kept looking at it. He finally got up and he went, "Do you have a granite somewhere in your property?" And I went, "Yes, it's right there." He said, "Well, in many of the globally important orogenic gold districts, the biggest deposit sits on the contact of the granite, and the granite is brittle, it breaks, and that's because of that's trying to, you know, anyway, that formation allows these deposits to be preserved, and they tend to be very big." And I went, "Wow, we have actually a gold showing, or actually several along there, and we have a quartz vein, and we have a target." And so I discounted that to begin with in a way. We drilled that early and didn't get very good results. There's some gold in it, but not a lot. I went, "You should go back and look at that again too." So, and then he went, "You should go here, 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 and there." And we've been to 3 of the 4 places and found high-grade bonanza veins so far. And the 4th one, which is the granite target, we're not going to significantly get to that this year. It's in an awkward spot. It's one of the few places that doesn't have really good road access. And also, it's all covered in moss and ice, permafrost. So prospecting is tough. But yeah, next year that will be the focus of our exploration for next year, is that particular target.
Okay, we are now here at a very special point of history of the gold rush. 6 people came up here in 1896 and found the first gold, and then the thing began. Give us some numbers, some facts, some fun facts about what happened here from 1896 onwards.
This particular claim is responsible for 3 million ounces of gold, which have come from El Dorado Creek, which is just over to my right. It was discovered 2 weeks after the initial gold discovery on Bonanza Creek. Bonanza Creek and El Dorado Creek are the 2 famous creeks in the Klondike. Bonanza's produced 2 million ounces over the last 125 years. El Dorado is producing 3 million ounces and still more being mined today. This is the discoverer's cabin and fireplace. So Anton Stander and his 4 prospecting partners came here, discovered gold by panning in the creek just there, and that led really to the kickoff of the world hearing about it. So Anton and his prospecting partners mined gold over the winter of 1896. It's all frozen ground. It took until March, April of 1897 before the water starts to run so they could sluice the dirt. It was all frozen until then. They sluiced all their dirt. They've recovered a whole pile of gold. And his 4 partners left here in late June, early July 1897, went downriver on the Yukon River, went to Alaska, got on a boat, took with their gold, and there were 22 miners from that winter got on the boat, and that's the boat that hit Seattle and then San Francisco. And the news of their discovery, they had 22 people had 2 tons of gold between them. The 4 that came from this claim had 60% of that. So these people were amongst the billionaires and the most wealthy at the time. The news of that discovery, though, that hit North America in late July of 1897, and everybody said, oh geez, we got to come here. And so 150 to 200,000 people from all around the world tried to come here. They got caught by the winter, so they end up in Skagway, crawling up over the mountain in the winter of 1897 into where Whitehorse is today in March of 1898, built their own boats, floated down the Yukon River, and arrived in April, May, June of 1898, 2 years after the discovery, and literally 2 years after everything had been staked completely. And so all this stuff on both Bonanza Creek and El Dorado Creek was staked by the end of August in 1896. One fun fact, Klondike Gold owns placer claims that were staked in August of 1896 on Upper El Dorado today. They've never been relinquished, and they've been sold for 125 years, and Klondike Gold owns the original title to them, and those are the original claims that were staked there. And you've been to our cabin too. That's the cabin that we just visited. It's those claims. So there is a connection here for 125 years of history, basically due more to Anton's standard, I think, than the discovery on Bonanza Creek, because El Dorado Creek was arguably far more important, and that's the one that really kicked off the Klondike Gold Rush, because that's when the news got out, the world came here. And Anton Stander is Slovenian, and a bit of background on him. He came to North America in the late 1880s. His uncle was driving nitroglycerin in the California Gold Rush, and he decided as an 18 or 19-year-old that was crazy and he didn't want to do that. And he ended up coming up through Alaska down into where Yukon is today, and he heard of the original placer discovery. He was just downriver, and he came here to find the discovery outcrop, or the discovery claim on El Dorado Creek.
Okay, Peter, we were just driving more than 20 kilometers already on your property here, and we reached a point that is kind of new. It hasn't been here, or we didn't saw it when we have been here 5 years ago. Just explain us what we see here.
The Gay Gulch showing. Originally, when you were here 5 years ago, there were a few drill holes here, but that was about it. And what we've done since, we've done quite a bit of geology work and exposed this face. And this is exciting because it helps a lot from a geology sense in the entire district. What you can see are veins going this way, what we've been calling in our news releases sheeted veins. That's what we've been drilling. But here, there's another vein cutting them, and this vein is the fluid source for the gold coming from deeper down in the earth. That got injected up here. It's in the wrong orientation, so all the gold stayed in solution and it just jacked out into the rocks adjacent, creating these laddered sheeted veins. So what we're looking, I can see this, I don't have to guess at it now. It's like, cool, this is what's going on. Here's the orientation. I can explain why we're drilling this, but I'm looking for lots of these. And this particular outcrop, where we find these intersecting, we get bonanza gold grades. So that's why this is super important. And this particular vein right here runs 143 ounces per ton. 143 ounces per ton. I don't know, I can't remember what that is in metric anymore, but
it's a lot.
It's a lot. And so, this is what we're exploring for.
So it's kind of a missing piece in the whole puzzle.
Finally, it's one of them, yeah. And this outcrop in its own right, just looking at it with all the veins, this to me looks like something that belongs in a mine. Like I've worked in mines where this outcrop is a face. Yeah, I'm thrilled with this. This is something that's going to help us do some fun things in the near future. having basically world-class experts of any sort, look at what we've done. I've been overtly inviting them here, and over the last 3 years we've had a whole series of master's, PhD, honors thesis done through 3 different Canadian universities here to examine that, so we have scientific data to show them too. And so when we invited them, they're both from the US, world-class orogenic gold experts, and said, here's the data, here's our mapping, here's our interpretation, and here's what we think is the potential. It was delightful, actually. It's like, oh man, yes, basically, yeah, hands down, there's potential. This is a world-class gold district that's entirely overlooked. They were kind of shocked at the relative lack of any information other than what the company had collected over 10 years. There was none. And that also, it just speaks to the point that it's completely overlooked. They also were going like, how did you get the entire district? Because we own literally 95% of the area of the Klondike. And nobody else wanted it. Literally, like, yeah, it's crazy. So, I mean, it should have been an exploration target long ago, and it's just a matter of mischance, I suppose, that has resulted in us having a fantastic project that would be the envy of most any company.
So it must be a very good feeling for yourself that experts like these people support your idea, but that does also mean that the financial markets will at some point believe in it, since Klondike itself was not on the radar screen for a long time, or forever, which surprises me, because I think all the Canadian mining related investors should know the area. However, having experts, and I think there will be publications coming earlier or later, and you will be spreading out the story that should change the whole game a little bit. And if you follow his advice and concentrate on these hotspots the next year, there may be some hard facts underlying the story as well. So give us an idea what, in an ideal, semi-ideal world, because of usually exploration companies live always in an ideal world, and that never works. Semi-ideal world, how could the next 2 to 3 years look like, and what is a realistic scenario, how this all develops in, as these people said, smaller, medium-sized, bigger mines?
Well, the first question in terms of just the public reception and the brokerage reception as well has been, honestly, I would come and say, hey, I'm sitting on a globally important gold district that's been entirely overlooked, sitting in Canada. And the brokerage community in Toronto would go, yeah, sure.
One of these guys.
Well, exactly. Well, yes, actually, and I go through, effectively, it sounds like a conspiracy theory in many ways. It's like, this is how it got overlooked, and not only that, but disregarded, so that there's no gold there. The statement, none, and I'm disproving that. And their response, really and legitimately, it's a fair one from an investment perspective, is, well, when you go prove that, then come talk to us. What are we going to do in the coming next couple of years? The objective is, finally, I guess we are focusing our efforts on finding the big deposit, but we also have to expand the deposits that we know about, and I think there's reason to believe that the Lone Star Zone, the Standard Zone, Gay Gulch, which will become a mineral resource. So Lone Star Zone currently has 90% of our gold resource in it, and I've said publicly, and I continue to say, that the Lone Star Zone was our first discovery, and it's not nearly by far not the best, merely the first. Standard Zone was the second discovery that has about 100,000 ounces in it currently. That's our, you know, and 1/10 of our mineral resource, or less. And that's better. It has double the grade versus the Lone Star zone. We're currently drilling the Standard zone for extensions. We think that it extends considerably for kilometers, and so we've jumped out 1/2 kilometer, and that's where we're drilling currently. And in the background there, the holes, the drill core is from that. You know, we're having some success. There's definitely gold there. You can see visible gold in the quartz veins. That's great. These are forming in parallel on the bend in a regional trend. And so Lone Star zone is here, the Standard zone is next. Gay Gulch is parallel to these and just steps across, and we've made a discovery there, the Gay Gulch showing, because we don't have mineral resources there yet, but that has a bonanza vein in it that has 143 ounces per ton gold. And when you look at the outcrop, to me it looks like it belongs in a mine. It's shot full of quartz veins. It's giving us, we've washed the outcrop, surface outcrop, and it's a rare one in the Klondike to find, but it's giving us a lot of structural information too that will lead us to other places. It's what's special about this particular outcrop. Lots of gold, lots of quartz veins, perfect. What can we learn from that and apply elsewhere? So that's also happening right now, and that will let us target things for next year. And then the fourth one is the target that a world's expert basically suggested and said, where's the granite? He said it's right here. And when you stack these three, Lone Star, Standard zone, Gay Gulch showing, and then this ridge next, where we have gold and quartz vein on the granite contact, which is where in other districts around the world, that's where the world-class deposit is. We have yet to get to that. That's going to be the exploration focus for future. And so the summary though is, first, what we're trying to do in the next couple of years is get to over 2 million ounces in a mineral resource estimate. At that point, 2 million ounces is kind of the threshold for being globally relevant to much larger companies. And also, at the same time, focus our discovery efforts on the big deposit, if it's on the contact or whatever, test that as well as some of the other ideas that we've just newly received, to go and try and find the really big world-class deposit, drill it, and say, here you go to the world. So there's a lot of things that we're going to be doing in the next couple of years, and it's, when you think of what we've done over the last 10 years, where we have 750 square kilometers approximately. It's a huge tract of land with zero information on it. We had to start from scratch, learn even where the roads go within it. You know, it's as basic as that, and then go and sample, and there seems to be gold everywhere. And there wasn't any system or rationale for it. It just kind of hit and miss. And with all the gold producing placer creeks, well, of course, the placer miners are finding it here, there, and everywhere too. And there's an overload of noisy information that wasn't scientific. And placer miners are kind of hard scrabble guys anyway. And then there's no systematic geology, nothing. So we've had to do all of that from scratch. To today, now, it's beginning to make a lot of sense. We have major crustal structures mapped. We have a whole pile of zones that we can see details, why the gold is there, why the veins form, where the faults are. I can target things now. It's beginning to make sense. With the mineral exploration, we've been doing scientific work too. And what's coming in the very near future, there's a paper being published. It'll be submitted next year. The abstract has gone in, and there'll be a session at the Geological Society of America presentation in tectonics that will describe the faults and thrusts here. And that'll be the first time anybody's ever mentioned the word fault associated with the Klondike in public, in any academic literature, anywhere. And that, just in a general sense, is a huge achievement for us.
In Klondike Gold, it's the same like in a lot of other markets. The company is doing very well, but the stock price is not reflecting that. It looks like that's from talks in the years before that this was really a milestone year. It's only the investors who suffered a little bit, but that's in the gold markets in general. But that's also something that is interesting. But yeah, from all what you told us, that looks very, very promising. And I think when the financial markets do understand it and money will be moved back into gold, then you should be on the list.
Klondike Gold is in the Yukon, so the Yukon is actually one of the discovery stories, if you will, of the current market.
Yeah.
Victoria Gold, the Canada's newest gold mine, is 100 kilometers that way. Banyan is a company adjacent to Victoria Gold, and they have a huge discovery in their own right. And there's been a number of different new discoveries in that similar terrain adjacent to those two.
Yeah.
And that's engendered a lot of interest from major companies. And they've invested not only in them, but in other advanced exploration projects elsewhere in the territory. So in general, the Canadian mining market has the Yukon on its radar.
And the world has Canada on the radar.
And that's right, yes.
Peter, let's talk a little bit about the stock and because of the performance and the outlook, because of this is what investors, of course, want to hear, and you and me are investors as well. So we learned that your idea of a source for the gold of the Klondike, a big source for the gold of the Klondike, became some very big support from world-class experts who have been here, and they do not only support the theory that there is a source, they say that your area, 750 square kilometers, which is larger than a couple of dozen countries on planet Earth, may become a major mining district with several mines, small, medium, and maybe one or two big-sized mines. That is something that you can't do alone. So give us an idea. What do you think? How does that all here looks like in 10 years? Is there several mining companies? Where are you, and what is the development of Klondike Gold from now to there? Will you run at the end a mine, or other than you retire then, hopefully?
Well, as you know, the money is oxygen to junior mining companies.
Yes.
If you don't have access to money, you're dead. That's it. So far, I haven't had any problems finding and accessing money from individual investors and the junior market, the typical sources of funding. What I'm trying to do now, and again, we're evolving. We found mineral resources that have some value, 600,000 ounce mineral resource estimate. We can grow that, but it's also time to transition into bigger or better, more reliable sources of financing. So over the last 6 months, I've been trying to find a major or a major investing partner, which would be a mining company, and try to have them come in to take 10% of Klondike and then commit to topping that up or continuing the finances. What that does functionally would give me a lead order in every financing.
Yes.
And from the junior investor, the individual investor, that's really encouraging. So I've had discussions with a number of different major and intermediate mining companies who are interested conceptually. However, it's this shot in the dark. Hey, you don't have any, like you say, this is a major district, but nobody else says that. It's just you.
That has changed now.
And that's changing. That's been a big hurdle for. I mean, if I go to a major mining company in Newmont, it'd be one as an example, and told them that I had Carlin, they would understand that instantly and go, oh, okay, now we can evaluate. I haven't been able to say I have an orogenic gold deposit. And they go, well, no, you don't. You don't. Who knows what you have? You don't have anything, because that's what everybody else says. I go, well, here we are. Anyway, so that's changed now. And I have had discussions anyway where there has been two companies in particular that it's been close to being able to get that, and these conversations are ongoing. So, I hope in the near future that we do obtain some support from a recognizable entity that provides individual shareholders with some kind of comfort that, I know that basically the money sources are evolving to more sophisticated sources, along with the transition of the company to becoming a bigger, more mature explorer. We own, in title, we own the entire district outright, 100%. Most of the claims have no royalty on them as well. We stake them, and so that's another possible way to monetize things, is to go to a royalty company and say, hey, look, we can sell you a royalty. There's none currently, so there's lots of room, and get money that way to finance. Another way to do it is to joint venture certain parts of the property off, and that would invite another junior or somebody else to come in, and they would spend the money to earn 50%. I've been reluctant to do that I've been reluctant to do that because I've never known what parts of the property. It's huge, but what ones are important and what ones aren't, and I'd look like an utter idiot if I gave the really good part away for that.
It happened a lot in the past.
And it has done, yes. And I'm aware of those mistakes. I will make my own, but I'm trying not to repeat others' mistakes that have been made. So, and then then the final one is ultimately when you do find a deposit, and it does have, it is accretive to a mid-tier or a major company, then basically it becomes an auction. Klondike Gold, I am not a miner, absolutely not. If I'm going to invest in a mining company, that's because they have miners who know what they're doing. What I know is how to go and take their roots, twigs, and berries on the hillside there and turn that into a mineral deposit.
It's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Exploration is a totally different business than mining. Yeah, but I mean, that sounds good. You're relaxed and optimistic, even in that global environmental situation, and seems there are few options partnering up and bringing that forward, and the size and potential, and especially the support from independent experts. That's something when that hits the financial markets, that should have a positive impact. Plus, what we see is that the stock is trading on very weak volume, which means that it's we can't go out here and are responsible for the stock price on current levels. And when somebody comes in on bigger, there is no size on the way up. We saw that. So grab some cheap stock here and wait for the partners.
I am privileged to have shareholders who continue to believe and support it. Like we've been able to place most of the money in, I characterize that as strong hands. Really, they have bought and held. There's actually a solid group that are accumulating at this level too. And it's good. We all have this vision of the future where gold is valuable to the market, and then as soon as that happens, and there's like a 6-month lag usually, and the seniors have already moved, and you know they're doing really well, and then the world turns and goes, who's got the next gold discovery? And that all runs, and that's the Vancouver, the TSX Venture Exchange, the junior golds on it all move as well, and I'm trying to be at the forefront of that.
Okay.